I've always had a hard time sleeping, so I've been slowly adding to my techniques to help me fall asleep. First, I started wearing earplugs every night, and then I put on a sleep mask, but if you don't have a sleep mask around, you can just put a t-shirt over your head upside down. Then I was at this hostel with a snoring guy, and I learned that I could upgrade my earplugs if I put earbud headphones in and just played ocean sounds or rain noise. It made it seem like I was on the beach next to the shore, and just somewhere off in the distance down the beach was a snoring guy, It made it way better. So now I put on the rain sounds every night. Then kind of the last piece of the puzzle is, for a little while I used to do meditation and I really liked it, but it's really hard to fit that into your day. Just to find the time to just sit there for 20 minutes, half an hour, it just doesn't happen. It always helps if I can combine things together, so I figured out on a flight, I was on this long flight, and I was sitting up in an airplane chair, so I knew I wouldn't be able to properly sleep. But I thought, what if I just try meditating right now? What if I use this as meditation time? And then if I inadvertently fall asleep, well, that's just a bonus. And it worked really well. It really helped me get through the flight. I would just close my eyes, put on my fucking rain noises, breathe in and out as deeply as I could and as slowly as I could. And I would just count down from 100 and kind of walk myself through a memory. Like I'd remember a specific place that I had been and I would just walk through it. And it worked so well that I started doing that basically every night. And I like it because it gives me structure to trying to sleep. It's so frustrating trying to sleep when you're an insomniac. But this way I've got a plan. It's like, okay, put in the earbuds, put on the rain sounds, cover up your eyes. Now breathe slowly in and out and count back from 100. And in between each number and each breath, think about another step along a memory of a place where you used to live or a place that you visited. And it takes away the pressure of trying to fall asleep, because I'm not trying to fall asleep. I'm just doing meditation. And I like the counting down from 100 because in the unlikely event that I make it all the way to 0, which never happens, but theoretically, if I get to 0, that's like permission to just get up and to do something else and to not try to go to sleep. So I thought I would walk you through a little memory of the second to last day I was in Japan. Last year I visited Japan, and on this night I was at the Skytree with my friend Brad. He was already in Japan. The reason why I went to visit is because I knew someone there. So we rendezvoused in Tokyo and we went to the Skytree, and it was getting pretty late at night and I was staying really far away. My Airbnb was way at the edge of Tokyo. So we parted ways. His Airbnb was close enough by that he was just going to walk back. I had to find the subway. So cue the rain noise. 100. I'm just a little ways away from the Skytree, and I'm trying to find the entrance to the Asakusa line towards Shinjuku. 99. I can see the Skytree nearby, which is a huge tower lit up at night. And it reminds me of the last time I was there. I was all by myself, and I saw a mother and her little boy, and she was just pointing it out to him, and they were looking at the sky tree. And I felt a little weird because I was just half a block away, just a random foreign guy, kind of watching them watch the tower. And, I didn't want to hang around too long, or just because it would seem weird. But it was just this nice little moment. It was strange. It's like, I guess I was just standing there eating like a onigiri or something. And yeah, just seeing them have that little mother-son moment, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I always remembered that little moment. 98. In this case, I cannot figure out where the entrance to the subway is at all until a stream of people come from somewhere. I'm like, oh, okay, the train came in. Let's go the opposite way, and hopefully I can find the entrance. I find an opening down into the subway, but I'm somehow not very close to where I'm trying to get to. I have to walk through the subway for a while, following the signs to Asakusa Station. And I'm starting to get a little concerned because the subways stop pretty early in Japan. In fact, the first time I came to the Skytree, I had to walk all the way back because I missed the train. But in that case, I was at least staying in Tokyo proper. Now that I'm so far away, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. But let's see. 97. I find the subway platform I'm looking for, and I'm waiting for the train. And it's not coming very quickly. I guess this time of night, there's not that much need for trains. So people start to build up and build up. And I'm not totally sure how much money I have left on my Suica card, which is the subway card that I still have in my wallet, because I just think it's cool. Whenever I open my wallet, I'm like, there's my little subway card from Japan. The subway shows up, and I'm at least pretty confident that I'm going the right way. I've got to go to Shinjuku, but then I should be able to just stay on this train and take the Chuo line way out to Tachikawa Station. The first time I took this ride, the first time I came out to try to figure out where this Airbnb was, I started in Shinjuku. And I didn't spend a lot of time in Shinjuku. I found it kind of, it was a little too much. I kind of preferred the quieter kind of Ikebukuro areas. And then this second Airbnb that was way out in the middle of nowhere, I actually liked the best. And the first time the train was very crowded and the ride was very long. But this time of night, since I started at the source, I was able to sit down, and the train didn't seem that busy. If it got busy, I'd give up my seat, but it seemed like I would actually be able to sit for this ride, which is very rare, but I guess just because it was late. 96. At Shinjuku Station, I don't remember. I know it got busier, but I can't remember if it got busy enough that I gave up my seat. It might have, but I know by the time I got further along the Chuo line, the train definitely cleared out enough for me to get a seat again. It's so neat to go to the outskirts of Tokyo. The train can go so far, and people just keep exiting the train, and new people rarely get on, and eventually it's just emptier and emptier and emptier, and it's eventually hits a point where it's weird that I'm there, It's weird that some guy who does not speak the language at all is this far out into the outskirts of Tokyo. 95. It takes so long to get to Tachikawa Station. It's something like 40 stops. That by the time I get there, the station is shut down. I've never been there this late before. And unfortunately, this is not the end of the journey. I'm supposed to take the Ome line to Haijima Station, then the Itsukaichi line to Akigawa Station. So I have a long way to go. But at Tachikawa Station, the Ome line has like a ribbon pulled across it, and the station attendees are just directing everyone out. I came to Tachikawa Station a few times before just because it was the biggest station anywhere near my Airbnb. In Shibuya and Shinjuku, I got the back of my heels stepped on a lot, which I can't remember that happening anywhere else. It's just very crowded. Tachigawa was not crowded like that. It was pretty busy, but there kind of wasn't much around there. I would just kind of walk a little bit in every direction just to explore, and I didn't really find anything in particular. I mostly just like going to the Tully's Coffee that was there and just hanging out there and then taking the train somewhere else. 94. Luckily, I did do enough exploring that, despite the fact that I was stranded in Tachigawa Station at, sometime after midnight, I knew I had a long way to go, but I was pretty confident about how to get there. I knew the lay of the land. A lot of times when I first get somewhere, not just in Japan but anywhere, I'll misread the map and literally go the wrong way, go 100% the wrong way. And it's nice that I didn't have to worry about that in this case, because Tachigawa Station is split very distinctly in half. There's two sides to the station. And I knew which side I wanted to go on. I wanted to go to the less developed side. The side I wanted to go to has a 7-Eleven that, there's nothing unusual about a 24-hour 7-Eleven in Japan. But this one I remember because I was standing outside of it just eating whatever food I bought. I got most of my meals just from 7-Elevens and Family Marts and Lawson's while I was in Japan. And this older drunk Japanese guy really tried hard to talk to me, but he had no English and I have no Japanese. I know random terms from anime and that's all. But it was like a little weird because he really stuck with it. He really tried to talk to me, even though we just had zero communication. But it was kind of nice in a weird way. Like that night when I was stuck at Tachigawa Station, that is the thought that I had. It was like, okay, go to that 7-Eleven where I talked to the old drunk guy and we know where to go from there. So at the 7-Eleven, I didn't buy anything yet. I was pretty confident there'd be more stores on the way. And eventually I would get some coffee to help spur me on in the journey. But not yet. So I got to the 7-Eleven and I turned right, and I knew further down this way there was a park, because that park was the farthest I had explored previously. I remember I went to the park and there's vending machines everywhere. The vending machine there, I got just like it's like this water with green tea, where the green tea is in the cap, and you push down on the cap and it drops the green tea into the water and you shake it up. And I just remember sitting at that park, drinking that drink, and just another older Japanese guy, just kind of looking at me, just kind of curious, He's just like, it's strange. Wonder why this guy's here at our park, our old man park. Because I was definitely, this is far enough on the outskirts that it was a little strange that I was there, and I'm only going further. Everybody was really polite in Japan, though. I remember when I first arrived, I was trying to find my first Airbnb, and the streets were pretty narrow and there's no sidewalk there. And I stepped out of the way of an older guy on a bicycle, and he gave me this nice smile and nod. And just that little thing, but I found it really nice because I just had come from Amsterdam, where the cyclists could not give a fuck if they kill you. And just old people in general, you presume if anybody's going to be like, what are you doing here? It's going to be an old guy. But this old guy was really nice, and that is generally the vibe I had the whole time I was there. 93. So in this case, I was just walking down the dark, quiet streets, and it's still quite a developed area, pretty suburban. This street was just street lights and houses. I wasn't quite in the countryside yet, still in the city. But I was just walking, and cars would go by occasionally, and I didn't see anybody. And I realized it had rained while I was in the train, because the pavement was all that really pretty look, like in movies, where the ground is just kind of sparkly and just like really awesomely lit by the streetlights. And I was glad that the rain had missed me. And as I kept walking, the classic Japanese humidity started to hit me. And I would normally not walk around without my shirt on, but there was no one around, and it was the middle of the night, and it was so humid all of a sudden. It just kind of hit me. So I just took off my shirt, and I was just like, that feels so good, just to walk down this beautiful street in this country I was always curious about, but I'd never been to before. And even though I was exhausted and I still knew I had a long walk ahead of me, it's still kind of exciting, It's just like an adventure. It's kind of nice in situations like this just to know you can handle it, Maybe I could have found a taxi or something, but I'm like, no, you know what? This is going to be a long walk. But I got my little mental map. I got things figured out enough. But I'm pretty sure I can pull this off. 92. I walked by a Family Mart convenience store, and I guess I should mention that I had a cell phone, but it didn't have a data plan. I could only use Wi-Fi. And for whatever reason, you're not able to download the Google Map of Japan for offline viewing. So I could only check the map to make sure I was going the right way whenever I found a convenience store. So I checked the map and I just confirmed I was going the right way, and I tried to figure out how far I had walked from Tachikawa toward Haijima. And I was not close. I had a long way to go. 91. One thing that you see a lot in Japan are overpasses they've made for pedestrians, and a lot of times people don't use them. They just cross the street from the bottom. But I always kind of liked going up the steps and walking across the streets, and I did it here even though it was the middle of the night and there was no one around. But they're always kind of weathered. And that's one thing I noticed right away in Japan that I didn't expect. I kind of expected everything to be more prim and proper. It didn't really occur to me that because they're on an island and they're just being pelted by weather all the time, that just to keep everything perfectly well painted and unrusted and unworn, it would be an unwinnable battle. And the sense that I got in Japan, there was this feeling I really liked that, I guess because it's like this island climate, the delineation between indoor and outdoor was a lot fuzzier than it is in Canada. In Canada, it's very distinct because it's cold half of the year, so you've got to keep the outside out. Where in Japan, everything mixed together a lot more. There'd be a lot of places just with no doors at all. And you just move from indoor to outdoor, and it was just nice. And part of that was just that a lot of stuff is just kind of weather beaten and a little run down looking, and I really liked that. I just found it comfortable. So I just remember walking up this pedestrian overpass and going across, and just the paint chipping off of it. Middle of the night, no one around. It's funny because most of this walk was a blur. This particular leg of the journey is just a straight line. So I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember that. Am I at 91 or 90? I don't know. It's a good sign, though, if I lose track of numbers. It means I'm falling asleep. But 91. A little over halfway, I finally decided to stop at a 7-Eleven. At this point, it had chilled down a little bit. I had my shirt back on. And I went into this 7-Eleven and just got some onigiri and probably some chocolate bars and stuff. Definitely got some canned coffee. And most of the time, like I said, everyone in Japan was really nice and really friendly. And I really didn't even feel like I stood out, even though I obviously did. But it did change a little the more you get on the outskirts. Like, this guy was definitely confused for a random white guy who couldn't speak Japanese to be coming into his store at whatever it was now, past 1 a.m. But I couldn't explain it to him. All I could do was be polite and say thank you. So I bought some stuff and I continued on my journey. 90. So as I was finally starting to approach Haijima Station, I was starting to feel it, you know? I'm definitely starting to get old, where like my shoulder hurts when I walk a lot, because I've got a bit of scoliosis and my shoulder is always the first to go. And at this point, my knee was starting to hurt a little, and my feet, I've got flat feet too, it was all starting to pile up a little bit. But I was almost at Haijima Station. And again, luckily, I had done this before just as an experiment. As an experiment, I was like, let's just try to walk from Haijima to my Airbnb. And I didn't fully do it, I just started, basically. I got myself set in the right direction. And I'm glad that I did, because that paid off now. Now I knew where to go. I knew which direction to head, because from there, it's very confusing which way to go. I got lost a few times. It's what I tend to do when I visit places. I try to stay for a long time, and I just walk around randomly and just go to random places. So in this case, I didn't actually go to Haijima Station because I knew it was closed anyway. I just skirted around it, but I knew which direction to go. And it's good that I did, because in this case, this is where I officially crossed over into the outskirts of town. There were no more convenience stores for a while, and not only that, the next leg of the journey was much longer than I expected. Because I got to this big highway, and compared to the small, quiet street I'd been walking down before, I guess it wasn't that small. It was a 2-lane, 3-lane street, but it seemed small and it seemed quiet because no one was on it. Suddenly I was on a big 5-6 lane highway with big 18-wheelers going by, and it's just like the middle of the night and everything's loud and rumbly now, and it's like brrrr, and it's like, whoa, I really hope I'm going the right way. I shouldn't even be here on foot. This is not the place for a pedestrian to be, and everything is just weird and uncomfortable. And the distances just really felt longer than I expected at that point, because I wasn't in a normal suburb anymore. I wasn't regularly walking past buildings. Things seemed a lot less clear. 89. I finally sorted out how to cross the highway and where to turn to get myself going in the right direction again. And the traffic calmed down and quieted again, and I was just kind of off on my own little path. But this part I always remember, where I had to cross a bridge, and the bridge wasn't especially high, but it wasn't well lit. Nothing around was well lit, and it was so dark. And I was crossing over this, I don't know, it was like a shallow, bigger than a stream, like a very small little river. And everything was quieter now. I could just hear the highway in the distance behind me. But ahead of me, you could just see the black silhouette of mountains. Everything on the edges of Tokyo is so mountainous and is beautiful in the daytime. But at night, it was just something very scary about it, of just these dark, black, forested mountains all along the horizon, and occasionally you could see a little house somewhere. And under me was just this open expanse of just, I knew under me was a river and I could hear the water, but I couldn't really see it. And it just felt like such an open void ahead of me and under me. And I just remember something about that feeling very creepy, of like, I have been walking for so long and it's the middle of the night, and you just start to feel the size of everything, of like, man, where am I? Where am I going? This is fucking nuts. Like you just feel so far away from everything. 88. Then I got across that bridge, and then I felt better because I was back in the general environment of my Airbnb. I was still pretty far away, but at this point, 3 or 4 subway stops, not nearly as bad. And this is like the fully rural area where people would just leave their fresh vegetables out with an envelope, and you just, on the honor system, you just pay for the vegetables. And I walked by a kind of outlet discount store where I had bought socks one time. And I just remembered that place because it was just a really nice older lady who worked there. I guess maybe it's becoming clear that since Brad is the only person I knew in Japan, and I only hung out with him for 2 or 3 weeks of my 3-month visit, a lot of my interactions with people were just clerks at stores that I just remember were nice. 87. I walked further, and now it's dead quiet. There's no one around. Everything's just asleep, until I got to a Family Mart that was open. And I didn't go in, but I just knew, like, I'm getting closer. And just knowing that there was a guy in there, I could go in and buy stuff, and like, I made it through that weird highway, and I made it across the scary dark bridge, and now I was just back in the little neighborhood I'd lived in all month, and everything was feeling a lot more comfortable, and I could feel like within a mile of home, getting close. I got to a Lawson's convenience store where there was a loop around my Airbnb. There was all 3 of them, a 7-Eleven, a Lawson's, and a Family Mart. And my Airbnb was supposed to have internet, and the internet never worked. But I didn't want to bother anybody, and nobody could really speak English that well. So I just used internet at those convenience stores, and that was the loop of like, between the 3 of them, if I had internet problems at any one, I could eventually get an internet connection to one of them. And I passed by one of those 3, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in my neighborhood. I'm basically home. 86. I got to the street that if I turned up it and walked up a hill, I would finally be back to my place. And I knew exactly which street to walk up, because one thing I learned over and over in Japan, and this neighborhood was the same way, is if you take shortcuts or you just try to cut, like, if I cut through here, I should get to there, a lot of times it doesn't work. There are a lot of dead ends. And I got lost in that neighborhood a few times of just being so close to my place and getting stuck and just having to turn around and go back. Because not only were there dead ends, but it's right on the train line, so the train line would block things off too. So this time, no fooling around. It's very late at night at this point. I'm really feeling that walk. I'm so excited to get back as I start trudging up the hill. 85. My Airbnb was at a place called the Legal Mind Taxi Building, just a little bit before Akigawa Station. And since it was a taxi dispatch place, there was always somebody at the bottom floor, always awake and available. And I walked past the front of the building and saw someone in there, and it's just like, cool. It was just nice in case I never did need them for anything, but if I ever did, it's nice to know they were there. And besides being a taxi dispatch, it was like a really narrow 4-story apartment building. where the front door of the apartments is on one side of the building and the back balcony was on the other side. And I walked up the stairs where there was always a bunch of umbrellas, just dozens of umbrellas. So if you ever needed an umbrella, you could just grab one. And I think I forgot to bring them back once or twice, but there's so many that it's just nice communal umbrella thing. And I went all the way up to the 4th floor. And I know most of the people in that building are not Airbnbers, like they're just actual Japanese people that live in those apartments. I remember one morning I came out just the same time as the lady who lived next door, and her place kind of smelled like cigarettes, but it was just this nice little, oh, good morning, you know. And it's just nice to stay there because it really is just what a Japanese apartment is like. It's not at all a tourist place. It's just a normal Japanese apartment building that if for whatever reason you were willing to go all the way to the edge of the subway line, you could stay here. So what are we at, 85, 84? I put in the key, opened my front door, took off my shoes at the entryway, went in, and it's just like a little narrow entryway, tiny little kitchen with a bathroom to the side, and then just the bedroom is the room. That's the whole apartment. And the back balcony, you could see this beautiful view of the mountains, those same scary mountains, but now they weren't scary because it's like, I'm home. I've even been up those mountains, you know, in the daytime. I've hiked up there before. Felt so nice and so comfortable. And yeah, I finally made it back. I finally made it through the fucking epic journey. I could just go the fuck to sleep and try to get some fucking rest before meeting up with Brad the next day to go see a waterfall. I gotta assume that at some point, as I'm counting down, as I'm trying to remember the details of the walk, I would probably have fallen asleep.
Day off in Kyoto, got bored at the temple, looked around at the 7-Eleven. The band took the speed train, went to the arcade. I wanted to go, but I didn't. You called me from a payphone, they still got payphones. It cost $1 a minute to tell me you're getting sober, and you wrote me a letter, but I don't have to read it. I wanna kill you if you don't beat me to it. Dreaming through Tokyo skies, I wanted to see the world. Then I flew over the ocean, and I changed my mind. Sunset's been a freak show on my weekend, so I've been driving out to the suburbs to park at the Goodwill, stare at the chemtrails with my little brother. You said you called on his birthday, you were off by like 10 days, but you get a few points for trying. Remember getting the truck fixed when you let us drive it. 25 felt like flying. Scorpio skies, I wanted to see the world through your eyes until it happened. Then I changed my mind. Guess I'm alive. I'm in